Walmart just issued a stunning warning that we all need to know about. And interestingly, President Trump directly responded to this warning. Let's jump in and see what's happening. Reuters has this article that Walmart shoppers to face price hikes as Trump tariffs hit. They go on to say that Walmart, the world's largest retailer, will have to start raising prices later this month in May of 2025. Due to the high cost of tariffs, executives said on Thursdays, 2 days ago as I record this. And Walmart's explicit statement is also a signpost for how the trade war is affecting companies, as Walmart is noted for its ability to manage costs more aggressively than other companies to keep their prices low. And U.S. shoppers will start to see prices rise at the end of May, and certainly in June. Walmart's chief financial officer, John David Rainey, said in a CNBC interview. And Rainey goes on to say, "We're pleased and appreciative of the progress that has been made by the administration to bring tariffs down. But let me emphasize, we still think that's too high." And I believe the tariffs right now are down to about 30%, both on China's goods to the U.S. and the reciprocal tariffs. Rainey said on a call that the tariffs are too high and talking about bringing them down to cut negotiations over the weekend, the tariff cuts. Okay, so what did President Trump then say? So on Saturday, as I record this just this morning, on CNBC, Trump tells Walmart to eat the tariffs after the retailer warned it would raise its price. President Donald Trump blasted Walmart on Saturday after the country's largest retailer warned this week it'll have to raise prices because of tariffs. Walmart should stop trying to blame tariffs as the reason for raising prices throughout the chain, Trump wrote on Truth Social. Between Walmart and China, they should, as it said, eat the tariffs and not charge valued customers anything. I'll be watching, I being President Trump, and so will your customers. Getting back to the CFO, Rainey earlier had said we're going to try to work with suppliers to keep prices as low as we can. And Walmart echoed that sentiment on Saturday when they were asked about President Trump's comments. And the CFO again says, "We've worked hard to keep our prices as low as possible and we won't stop," Walmart said in a statement. "We'll keep prices as low as we can for as long as we can, given the reality of small retail margins." Okay, so what does all this mean for you and I? You know, there is a lag between when tariffs get put in place and when we actually see that impacted in the stores. And we're very close to the point where we're going to start seeing that impact. Now, I think a lot of retailers are going to try to eat as much of the cost as they can. Remember, this is not the first time that we've seen increased tariffs. In President Trump's first term, he had tariffs put in place. And for the most part, the retailers and the suppliers, the Chinese suppliers, ate those tariffs. And actually, 2019 was a very strong year in the stock market. It was the last year of the Trump presidency before COVID came into play and changed everything. So we've seen in the past that retailers can eat these tariffs, but in this case, the tariffs are even higher than they were last time. So do I think we're going to see prices increase? I do, particularly when there's no other alternatives. And I'm thinking like coffee, I'm thinking like bananas, things where there's not a quick replacement. I mean, the U.S. is never going to be a large supplier of coffee. The U.S. is never going to be a large supplier of bananas. So we can only do so much. And I do think we're at a point where, as President Trump has said, we're in for at least a little bit of pain. He's asking us to do that for the long-term benefit. Now, a lot of smart people disagree with President Trump on tariffs. A lot of smart people say, you know, this could put the country into recession. And I kind of fall into that camp that it increases the risk, but I also agree that, you know, some of the trade imbalances that were put in place, these policies were put in place in some cases after World War II to allow Europe and other regions, Japan, to rebuild their own economies because the whole world's infrastructure was destroyed during World War II. Unfortunately for us, outside of Hawaii, the U.S. was relatively unscathed on the homeland. We lost a lot of soldiers, and that's a horrible thing. Several of my relatives served in World War II, including my brother's godfather. So obviously the U.S. sacrificed a lot, but our infrastructure was in place. So part of the reasons that these tariffs, part of the reasons these imbalances are in place is to allow those countries, now this was 70 years ago, 80 years ago, to rebuild their infrastructure and to rebuild their industries. For instance, I was just in Northern Europe, in Sweden and in Denmark. Very, very few American cars. Now, there are Teslas there, particularly in Sweden, because they have a lot of incentives for electric cars. And they are one of the countries that have the biggest fleet of electric cars on a per capita basis. So, but outside of the electric cars, I saw very few American cars and very few American goods and services. So I do think, and this is not a political channel, but I do think that there is some truth to the fact that we're playing on an unfair playing field. Now, I'd rather be a U.S. manufacturer. I'd rather be a U.S. company than a company anywhere else in the world, right? I mean, I think the U.S. is the land of opportunity, and for people that are willing to work hard, the door is open for us to really grow. And the pieces are in place. Certainly, if you want to start a tech company, the U.S. is the place to be. If you want to be in financial services, the U.S. is the place to be. Uh, if you're into advertising, the U.S. is the place to be. I would argue there's a lot of industries like that. And the question is, and what I've heard is there's already a lack of employees for the manufacturing job. So if President Trump is successful, and I do think we're seeing it already as I record this. President Trump just finished his trip to the Middle East. There is some major investments that have been announced in the U.S. That's taking place. So I do think we are going to get some new investment in the United States. The good thing, it's not the government funding this, but it's other countries that are interested in building here. But in order to build, in order to invest in the U.S., both by U.S. companies as well as outside companies, they need to have some certainty, some clarity as to how long the current policies are going to be in place. Ideally, they'd have visibility into that. So this is by no means an easy situation to navigate. So if you'd like this video, the YouTube algorithm says this is the next video of mine specifically for you that you should watch next. Thanks for watching this one. Bye-bye.